Reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, Lord. Jesus came from Galilee to John at the Jordan to be baptized by him. John tried to prevent him, saying, "I need to be baptized by you, and yet you are coming to me." Jesus said to him in reply, "Allow it now, for thus it is fitting for us to fulfill all righteousness." Then he allowed him. After Jesus was baptized, he came up from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened for him. And he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and coming upon him. And a voice came from the heavens saying, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Naturally, we just heard in today's Gospel reading of the story of Jesus' baptism. And naturally, we celebrate the baptism of the Lord here today. It's a great feast day, always occurring at that turn between the Christmas season and the ordinary time season. Technically, ordinary time begins tomorrow, with Monday of the first week in ordinary time. And next Sunday, we're going to skip a week, and it goes to the second Sunday in ordinary time. So there's no first Sunday of ordinary time, but this baptism of the Lord feast is kind of that transition between Christmas and ordinary time. So the great time of the year, obviously we just heard about the birth of Jesus, the Magi coming to greet Jesus. Now we hear about Jesus as an adult going to be baptized. So we've skipped a lot of time. And there's not much in the Gospels, in the Bible, about Jesus as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult. We only hear about him as an infant. And then he's presented in the temple. And following that, we hear about him at one point when they find the child Jesus in the temple. And then it skips ahead to today. So there's a lot missing in Jesus' life. But we kind of fast forwarded as we transition from Christmas to ordinary time. We now transition from the baby Jesus in the manger to now the adult Jesus going to be baptized. And now Jesus, as we know, went to be baptized. You just heard it in today's gospel reading. But baptism is still around today. Baptism, obviously, one of the 7 sacraments. It's usually the first sacrament. Baptism is kind of the gateway sacrament, the cornerstone sacrament, the foundation sacrament, where baptism is kind of the required sacrament in order to receive most of the other sacraments. Baptism usually you receive as an infant, very young age, and it's the first sacrament. It's the sacrament of initiation into the church. And by baptism you become a member of the church, which means in essence that you are wanting to follow Jesus, you want to give your life to Jesus, you want to serve Jesus, you want to follow Jesus, you want to do what Jesus did, and you want to have an indelible mark, an unchangeable, unerasable mark, stating that you are a Christian, that you are a Catholic, and that you want to follow Jesus, you want to be a child of God. And to me, it doesn't add up as to why Jesus was baptized. If baptism means that you're a child of God, if you want to follow Jesus, if you want to live like Jesus did, well, Jesus was the Son of God. And why would Jesus want to follow Jesus? Why would he want to follow himself? I don't know why he was baptized, but to me it does seem kind of odd. If baptism means those things, and you get baptized for those reasons, why would Jesus want to follow himself? Why would he want to lay down his life for himself, to follow God, who he is? And also we know that Jesus was born without sin. Jesus did not have the stain of original sin. Jesus never sinned up to this point. He will never sin after this point. And we know baptism, in the waters of baptism, we are reborn and our sins are forgiven. Our original sin is washed away. It's the only way to get rid of it. All the other sins that we may have committed up to that point are forgiven and washed away. So why would Jesus, who is God, who is Jesus, who is Christ, want to follow God, Jesus, Christ? Why would he want to follow himself? And why would he need to be baptized to forgive him of his sins if he himself was not a sinner? It just doesn't add up as to why Jesus was baptized. Now the Bible, all throughout the Bible, all the saints, all the great popes, all the writings of the church, the catechism of the Catholic Church, canon law, there's no answer as to why Jesus was baptized. But I have a reason that I believe is the reason why Jesus was baptized. And it may not be correct, but I believe that the reason why Jesus was baptized, even though he did not have to be, was to set an example. It's the same reason why Jesus had to suffer and die for us. It's the same reason why he instituted the Eucharist and said, "Do this in memory of me." It's the same reason why Jesus humbled himself and washed the feet of his disciples at the Last Supper, to set an example. So as we, thousands of years later, many generations later, if we look at baptism and we say, yes, Jesus said you have to be baptized, but hey, he was never baptized, so why would we have to be baptized? Jesus wanted to avoid that confusion. He wanted to make it clear that baptism was essential, baptism was important, baptism was monumental. He didn't want any doubt, any hesitation to be baptized, and that's why he himself was baptized, to avoid that confusion, to avoid any second guessing if baptism is necessary. Jesus was baptized to back up his words. He did not want to be labeled as a hypocrite, where if he said you have to be baptized and he himself was never baptized. He did not want his followers to be led astray by his actions. Even though he said to do something, he wanted to back it up by his actions. That's the reason why Jesus humbled himself. That's the reason why Jesus suffered. So that we, followers of Christ, through our baptism, through our call as Christians, but we know how to live like Jesus did, because we want to follow his example. We want to live like Jesus did. And if he was baptized, if he humbled himself, if he suffered, then we know that that is what we ought to do. If Jesus had only said you have to suffer, you have to take up your cross, if he only said you had to be baptized, but he himself had never done so, then which way do we believe, his words or his actions? And the same is very true to avoid being labeled as a hypocrite, to avoid confusion in today's life. It's so true today. If you are a parent, if you are a teacher, if you are an employer, if you have people subordinate to you, if you lead people, if you're in charge of people, if you have people who look up to you, even if you don't realize it, how important it is, yes, to tell them what to do, to tell them how to live, to tell them how to act. But even more important is to back up those words by your actions, by your example. To do what you want them to do. So if you're a parent and you don't want your child to swear, if you don't want your child to lie, if you don't want your child to gossip and to talk badly of others, then don't lie. Don't swear. Don't gossip. If you're a teacher, if you're an employer, if you are a leader of any kind and you don't want people under you to live a certain way, to swear, to lie, to cheat, to gossip, then don't do so yourself. Jesus did not have to be baptized, yet he chose to be baptized. And there's no distinct reason in the Gospels, in the Bible, anywhere, as to why Jesus was baptized. But I believe that Jesus was baptized in order to set an example for his followers to follow, to avoid any confusion, any hypocrisy. Jesus wanted us to know that, yes, this is how I say to live, but also do as I do and follow my example. And Jesus' example was to be baptized. And the same is very true today. That if you're a parent if you have people under you, if you're in charge of people, whatever the case may be, and you don't want your child to swear, if you don't want your child to lie, if you don't want your child to cheat, if you don't want your child to gossip, then don't swear. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't gossip. However you want the people entrusted to your care to live, make sure you live that way yourself.